there. Well, I hope that the sound carries all right. Kind of far away from the camera. Otherwise, if I get closer, I'll be too high. So let's do the Good Life meditation for today. Decided that it might be better just to avail myself of any and all opportunities to talk about these ideas in whatever form it comes. Whether it's recounting the objectives and principles in order as I'm about to do now, or if it's a kind of an extemporaneous discussion. Soliloquy. Can't think of the right word for it. Just a vlog maybe about things, ideas as they appear and apply to life. That's probably more interesting. Although for me, this reciting the objectives and principles has been the most reinforcing thing in my life in terms of making these very automatic. It's almost like a rosary in a way. You know how you'd have both Buddhists and I think Catholics have their rosaries, which they recite prayers or remember principles. And doing that with my Good Life meditation, where I recite 6 objectives and 20 principles, kind of has the same effect. It kind of makes these things almost subliminal, and they're right at the base of my consciousness, and I can live with them, actuate on them readily throughout the day, especially at work where I'm most challenged. Not exclusively, but there's a lot of challenges at work in terms of keeping an eye on the things that I can control and remembering what's outside of my control, because there's a lot of responsibilities floating around work, and I care, and it's easy for me to sometimes grab more responsibility than I should. It gets me into trouble. Or to recognize where the scope and limit of my control is, so that I don't get upset when things outside of my control don't go right. So here we go. 6 objectives. First of these is the objective to be always ready to die. And I do this every day, and I do this exercise every day in the morning, whether I record it or not. I always ask myself, am I ready to die today? Cliché, eh? There's a couple of fronts on which that question needs to be answered. One is, and the most important one, is in terms of my relationships with the family, my wife and my daughter, and my extended family. And the second one is financially. And third is, because I die, my family still needs to be taken care of. And third is creatively. Do I feel like I've satisfied my creative interest in life? And in terms of the family relationship, yeah, I think so. I think we've said everything, my wife and daughter, and I have said everything that we need to say. I'm comfortable with that. I think that there's not a lot of regrets. We spend time together every day, and there are sincere words and I love yous every day. And even when I don't see them, like a day like today, I'm out here, but I still make that a point. Likewise them. So I think that's a good shape. Financially, they're not perfectly set if I leave, but life insurance and savings will, and soon retirement pensions will, and Social Security will see them through for quite a while until they can get reestablished. I imagine my wife and daughter will go back to Japan, where it'd be very easy to reestablish, and much more economical. But I can still improve that, but I think it's good enough to make that transition. I'd like to make sure that I stick around at least a few more years to get my daughter through college. That would be very satisfying. I don't want to stay around as long as possible, but you know what I mean. And finally, creatively, yeah, I feel very good about that one. I got my book out, Going Alone is Done, and that's pretty much got everything that I want to say in it. It's true, there's that one chapter, The Good Life, where I recount exactly the things I'm talking about right now in very summary form in the book. And if you've picked up the book, if you got an early copy of it, it wasn't very good. I made a lot of changes. I've been through 8 versions since I first released the book, and the newest version is much better, including the Going Alone, the Good Life chapter is much more fleshed out. But I want to write a second book, and I am writing a second book, a companion book, a follow-up book called The Good Life, which takes those 6 and 20 and builds out a whole book based on that. So whereas the two will be a set, right? Going alone is my encounter of a universe without purpose. You know, you could say a universe without God. And the good life was my response to that, rather than just, you know, throwing up my hands and giving up in nihilists, you know. What would that be? Nihilists are, what are we? We're stereotyped as being, you know, it's all futile anyway, right? Just, you know, what's it all matter, right? No, instead of just giving up to that, you know, if there is no afterlife and there is no God and no ultimate purpose floating through the universe, no good and evil chiseled in the stars, you know, written in the stars, then what's the purpose, right? Why continue living? Well, I wasn't satisfied with that, so I went ahead and produced my own objectives and purpose, and in the form my own purpose in the form of my objectives and my principles, and that's what the good life is. So when I'm done, I'll have the going alone is the discovery of a universe without purpose, and the good life is my answer to that, and how I built and created purpose for myself out of basically that discovery. So yeah, so I'm satisfied. Even if I go right now, I would like to be a little bit run a little farther, a little bit longer, so that I could finish the good life, which is right here. Actually, that's why I'm under this bridge. So here, this is the good life I'm writing right there, and it's also in computer form. But I write it out here, and then I transcribe it. And so here is going alone. And you wonder, why are you carrying your own book around? I do it for a couple of reasons. One, I give them out, I hand them out. In fact, there's one under the bridge right there. I leave them places like Johnny Appleseed. But I also, this is version number 8, it says in the cover. I'm on the 8th reading of this thing. So then I go through and I find and I revise it, and it's constantly getting better. I know it's kind of, you know, self-serving to be reading, you know, stuff, but you know, it's an editing process. So ultimately, this will turn into one of these, and there'll be 2 of them, going alone in the good life, which will be basically my life's work, you know. And then I can really go in peace, you know, satisfied that my purpose that I've made for myself has been satisfied. All this stuff. Wow, all this time and I haven't even gotten through number 1. Here, let's carry on. So being always ready to die, and I think for the most part I am. Had an experience happen last week at work. I felt strong pain in my chest, and my first response was I was in my cube, and you know, I had my nice work clothes on, but I wasn't wearing my shoes because I don't like wearing my shoes. So I was afraid I was going to keel over and they were going to come find me. So I wheeled my chair over by the entrance of my cube, positioned myself so that if I passed out, I'd fall out into the aisle and someone would find me. And I grabbed my shoes real quick and put my shoes on because I didn't want anybody to smell my stinky feet. And I thought about it afterwards. I thought, okay, I guess that's a pretty good sign that, you know, I'm ready to die, when it's not a matter of, oh, what have I forgotten? What have I left undone? It's like, gosh darn it, hopefully my feet won't stink. I don't want anybody to have to smell them. Okay, number 2 is, so number 1 is being always ready to die. Number 2 is to make good and effective use of my time. This is one of the most powerful principles in my life. Just living a life where I'm not wasting my moments, not letting things just flow by, you know, wasting time, killing time, spending time, any of that kind of stuff. I want to be using time and making good use of my time. There's so little of it. And I do that by consciously asking myself, am I making good use of this moments in this moment of now? And for the most part, I think I am. You know, I'm pretty pleased with it. I wish I had more free time so that I could pursue these things, but I know that my work time and my family time are very important to stay grounded. You know, it would be easy to come out here if I just had this. After a while, I'd just be a wild-haired madman, shirtless. Ah! No one would be able to relate, but it's the fact that I stay connected. I stay connected to the world, and I attempt to live the workaday life and the family life and the prudent life and the conscientious citizen's life and all that stuff. That all of this then becomes relevant to anyone that might be interested. It's very important to keep that grounding. I almost didn't. That was a long time ago. made that choice, off or on. Number 3 is the development and maintenance of good, sound life principles. Just what I'm doing right now. These 6 and 20 took a long time, decades, to refine these. Some of this is plagiarized from elsewhere. A lot of these ideas I just picked up along the way, and I may even forget where I got them, but I kind of repurposed them. There's stuff that worked and then kind of became something that looks like mine. Some of it's not. I mean, like, there's a lot of Stoic stuff in here, and I'll freely admit it. I can't directly remember where I got it, but I'll say that there's Stoic stuff, transcendental stuff, general philosophical stuff, thing in here. And a good portion of it is my own too. And I develop and maintain these by thinking about them every day. Number 4 is the performance of good actions, just doing good things throughout the day. And I know what those are. Being a good person. It's easy. We know what that is. We're social. It's almost wired in us. We're social animals. We know what it is to make the world better, or to bring upon the world more strife, and try to do the former and avoid the latter. Number 5 is that is number 5, right? And number 6 is the recognition of true limits and true opportunities. This is very interesting, when I can be cognizant and aware of what I'm not able to do, what there may not be enough time yet to do, what might be outside my scope of capabilities, or not within my best interest, while at the same time picking out the things that I can do and that I should do perhaps, and doing less of the first and more of the second. It's too late for me to go to the Olympics, but it's not too late for me to get and stay in shape and to be a healthy and fit individual. Things like that. And you can apply that in just about everything. At work, as a project manager, it's not within my scope of control to micromanage all of the project team members' activities. Although that might seem like it's a project manager's job in some ways, it's not really. In the scope of my control, I'm not a supervisor or manager or an executive. The scope of my control is the action items that my team have, and if they don't follow through on those action items, it's not very helpful for me to berate them or to beat them over the head with guilt or shame or anger or threats. Much better to use the tools of project management. So within my control is the ability to identify an issue, to record that issue, document it, and escalate it up the chain of command, so that those who are paid the big bucks to have that power can then, berate, threaten, cajole those people into doing their job. So recognizing the limit and the limit of my control and the extent of my opportunity at work allows me to be a better project manager with a lot less stress. So there you go. Those are my 6 objectives. Those are the things I'm trying to do in life to live a good life. I have 20 principles that I do along those lines. The first of these is the principle of war. I try to wake up every day going to war with everything that I hold true, because I don't want to believe things that aren't true. And I might be wrong. And the best way to find out is to challenge these things. So I do that when I'm doing this exercise, and I usually pick something out and I plug it and I push it around and I prod it and I ask myself, is that really a good thing to do? Let's pick this one, like the principle of war. Is it really a good thing to be questioning the things that are tried and true, have been tested over and over again? And I guess the answer is yes, because I may yet find some new information or have some new experience that will show me that I'm wrong. Also, what I believe to be true may distort and change over time, and maybe become something else altogether. And the only way I'll know that is if I keep questioning. So yeah, it's a good thing. Your motorcycle. 2, the principle of reason. Reason is the tool, the instrument that I use in the pursuit of my understanding of what is true. Reason has 2 sub-principles, honesty and objectivity. I need to be objective about the world. I need to look at things for what they really are. And I need to be honest in my assessment of these things. And in so doing, I can then come up with reasonable conclusions about the nature of the universe. Like this rock has layers in it. I'm looking at it objectively. There's lines, layer after layer. Reason would tell me that looking at that objectively and honestly, that there must have been some function in the past that when this rock was not so hard, when it was being formed or when it was molten or as it was cooling, something that happened, either a chemical reaction or maybe a sedimentary force at the bottom of a stream or something that caused these layers. That's reasonable. And I think that the evidence supports it. So I try to do that throughout life. Number 3, the homunculus. Homunculus is the little guy that lives right here, right behind my eyes. Kind of looks out through my eyes. Imagine a guy with gears and levers operating things. And he's chained in there. It's like, imagine a ship captain, chained to the steering wheel, chained to the bridge. Whatever happens to the ship, happens to that captain. He's going down with the ship. My homunculus is going down with me. Now, of course, there isn't a man back there. But there is in a way, because there's this sense of who I am, this sense of self. And that's all I mean. And I want to remember that because I don't want to lull myself into thinking that there's something more there. Because there's no evidence that there's anything like a soul. It's a tempting thought. It's a nice thought to imagine something will escape and survive my death, our deaths. There's no reason to think so. So again, using reason, but no reason to think so, being honest and objective, I have to conclude that when this body dies, that this homunculus will die as well. And that's a good thing. I would like to stay longer, but it's a good thing because it causes me to take this time more seriously and live a better life. Next is the home of good and evil. Good and evil does not float around in the desert or the stars or the air or anywhere. It's not engraved in stones. Well, I guess it is in front of some courthouses. That's not universal evil. It's not some prohibitions and admonitions and recommendations from a creator or a deity or from eternity or from the universe. It's just human designed ideas, best practices, if you want. So those things come from us. They come from inside of our head. Good and evil reside in our head. There are opinions that we have about the state of the world. That's why these opinions can differ, but they tend to follow similar lines because for the most part, our species wouldn't have gotten as far as we did if we weren't designed by nature, designed by best practices through evolution, to look after each other and our tribes and our people and our families and ourselves. Home of good and evil resides right in here with homunculus. It's right out there. It's not in this bridge. It's not in the sand. And it'll die with me. And it is malleable, and that's a good thing because that means we can debate it and argue over it. If it was not, then if it's dogmatic, then there's no arguing. The only thing we can do is if you and I disagree, and it's a significant enough disagreement, and you have your dogma and I have my dogma, we're not likely to change. All we can do is separate or kill one another. 5, purpose. See, one objective purpose in life seems apparent, and that's to stay alive as long as possible and to make more of ourselves, make some copies of ourselves. It seems to be it, and it doesn't seem to be a purpose mandated by the universe. It's a purpose kind of self-evident in the way that biology works. So I've done that, got my child, she's almost an adult. What else? What are the purposes there? Well, I don't think there is anything else, objectively. So I make one. My purpose is to be a virtuous man, where virtue is defined as the improvement of the wholesale well-being of thinking creatures, as much as possible, even the non-thinking creatures, because the thinking creatures can benefit from that as well. So just making things better. So I strive to be a virtuous man. That's my purpose. Have a kid, be virtuous. Honking another time? It never honks another time. I wonder why it's honking. Maybe it's another train coming the other way. That's weird. Maybe someone's out there. Number 6 is the atomic principle. I always do that with that one. Everything is made of bits and pieces, flowing and changing and forever transforming. So too you and I. And when I die, just like this stone will eventually become sand, so too, ashes to ashes, dust to dust, I will return to my constituent parts. And the fact that there's that ashes to ashes, dust to dust is just nothing more than a recognition of that fact. It's obvious. Watch a body decompose, you see what happens. Burn it up, it becomes ashes. The homunculus won't get out. It's going to die or decompose with it. Wink out in a moment. Number 7, the principle of nature. Everything in the universe has some particular nature, including you and I. And it's worthwhile to recognize what that nature is and then live in accordance with it so that we can basically live a better life. For example, it's in the nature of my motorcycle to have mechanical problems. It may not start as I get back to the bike. It may break down. I got a long 200-mile ride home. It may break down, and that will throw a big monkey wrench in my day and my weekend. I've got to work this weekend. I've got to work tomorrow. It's going to make things hard. It's the nature of it, though. If it happens, though, I need not get upset. I just need to recognize that that is the nature of a motorcycle. It's also the nature of me to get a little upset and be anxious. I can recognize that and live according to that. If you hear the car go over. Next is the principle of maturity. 2 sub-principles. Wisdom and fortitude. We're mature when we have collected wisdom of our life and our experience. And when we can use that when we have the fortitude, the strength, the will to carry on through difficult times in the direction of what we think, of what we know is better based on our wisdom. That, combine those 2 together, wisdom and fortitude, and wisdom and fortitude, and you have maturity. Next is the social principle, number 9. We're social animals. We need one another to survive, and our best ends are social ends. It's good to do things for a social purpose, for the benefit of the many. I see I better hurry up. I'm running out of time. The battery's going to go down. Number 10 is the Feast of Offal. The Feast of Offal is the waste and byproduct of our undisciplined, unprincipled lives. It spills out and flows around and makes other people angry because we don't control ourselves, and we let our anger and frustration spill out towards others, being rude to people at work or road rage or whatever, and then they chew it up and they say, why are you getting so mad? Honk at you, screw you, right? And then it just kind of spreads. It's like a feast. And offal, of course, the waste and that gross stuff that a butcher makes. Why would anybody eat that? I don't know why we consume one another's filth of our poor living, but we do. So I try not to. That's recognizing the Feast of Offal and avoiding it. Number 11 is temperance and the sub-principles of suffering, simplicity, and apathy. Temperance is our ability to control our consumption of these things. Suffering, because we suffer when we deny ourselves what we want. Simplicity, because living a simple life is a temperate life. And apathy, because recognizing what we can't control and being apathetic towards it, not caring, but just recognizing what's outside of our control. Like, can't control if it starts raining right now. I'm not going to get upset if it starts raining. I'm apathetic towards that. Those are just marks of maturity, and they are part of living a temperate life. And when we live a temperate life, when we consume less, when we consume careful quantities, and carefully choosing what we consume, and I mean physically consuming, but also consumption such as work and play and even things like sex, and especially things like the emotions that we take in and that we allow ourselves to run away with. You know, if we feel emotion rising at us, instead of gobbling it up and getting upset, we just kind of nibble it a little bit and sample it and say, whence does this emotion come? And then make a better choice about how to deal with it. Next is agency and the great indifference. Agents are you and me and anything that's alive. The great indifference is what's left over when you take out all the living stuff. It's the cold, hard indifference of a stone. It's the apathy of sand, the disinterest of sand. It's even beyond apathy. It's beyond disinterest. It's just not even the capacity to care or know. It's a universe without God. It's a universe without purpose or any caring behind it. And if it is back there, it sure is hiding. It's not doing a very good job of making itself clear. Those of you who think that you think that you can see it, you have all your work out ahead of you still to demonstrate that that is in fact the case, and not just a feeling that you have inside. Feelings are not good evidence. Number 13 is the best seat in the house. To not want to be anyone else, be anywhere else, or be doing anything else, but to be okay with who I am, where I am, and what I'm doing, all the while striving to make my life better. That's the best seat. Next is the path of wildness. The path of wildness is a way to get unstuck in life, to recognize when there's a challenging decision to be made, and to allow ourselves some time to think about it, and when that time is up, to make a decision. And if we need more time, give yourselves a little more time. But eventually, watch out, because you can just keep on giving yourself more time after one time after another, and just live your whole life thinking about things, and before you know it, you find yourself dead, and you never took any action. You never really lived that life that would seem to be tempting you. I recommend that if you can't get all the facts and you're running out of time, you really want to make a decision, then go ahead and allow yourself to be informed of your gut a little bit, and make that gut decision and move forward. Recognizing that you may make a mistake, you may walk off the edge of a cliff, but also realizing that there is virtue in moving forward. Next is the risk of avoiding risk. There's the surface level risks of life that we encounter in our late teens and early 20s, when everybody tells us get an education, find someone to settle down with, start saving money. Get a good job and start saving money. Those are the surface level risks of life that will create a sane, sober, secure life. Those are good. Those are good. And for some people, that's enough. But I would caution that for a lot of us, there's a desire for something deeper. Kind of what is it? It's like that thing the hippies used to talk about. You know, becoming self-actualized. You know, having some adventures in life and discovering and learning something about yourself, developing pieces of yourself that may not exist, and then living those out, living out that life of your dreams. And I'll come to this when I talk about the great life adventure. But what I want to say is, it's easy to focus on the first one. Very few people talk about the second one. It wasn't since the hippies did that. The hippies were telling everybody, you know, find yourself. But they overdid it in a way, because you need that other thing too. What I recommend is, and I tell this to my daughter, is give yourself the decade of the 20s. Go to school, go as far as you can with college, and then when you're done, go have adventures. Try not to get anybody pregnant, but go out and have some adventures. Not many cars come over this road. And the adventures have a way of giving you courage, also helping you push your limits, discovering new people, finding new interests and the like. And you'll be amazed at what will happen as a result of that. And then later, when you turn into your 30s, then you can start settling down to a career, find someone to marry, have a family, all that stuff. And I'm pretty sure you'll then be a more rich and balanced person. You may not be as rich financially. You might have to work longer than the people that started saving in their 20s, in their early 20s. But I think you'll be more satisfied in the long run. You won't have as many regrets about, oh, you know, kind of get old and like, oh, if I had just taken more risks. Next is the sin and damnation. There are 5 sins in my worldview, and they're the same thing, really. Falsity, credulity, faith, superstition, and dogma. They're all basically forms of falsity, but I call them out specifically because falsity, of course, is believing things that are not true. Credulity is a willingness to believe things that are not true. And faith is credulity masquerading as a virtue. It's not. It's a little different from gullibility. Superstition is settling on these things for their entertainment value or for the fact that they give you something, some satisfaction, and they take away the hard work of figuring it out for yourself what the truth really is. And dogma, of course, is just give it up. You just throw in the towel. It's like, I give up. I don't want to play the game. Just someone tell me what the rules are. What did God tell me to do? I'll follow that. It's really just giving up. And the consequence of those things is that you basically live a damned life. You're damned because you're believing things that may not be true. Even though you may be able to get by, you may function quite well. You can function quite well as a flat earther. You know, you can get by, you can live your life and everything like that. You probably don't want to tell a lot of people, but you'll also be spending your life possibly believing something that isn't true. I just have a few minutes left, so I better move on. Next is complete oblivion. When we die, this thing dies. The bot flies, or not the bot flies, but the big old gross flies will come, clunk. They'll go into my nose and my ears and my eyes and down my mouth, and then the maggots will come out and I'll just squirmy mess, and before long I'll be a skeleton here in the desert, washed away in the flood, and I'll be gone, right? I'll be gone. The homunculus winks out in that moment as well, and good and evil, my concepts of it, all gone as well. That means there's no final reunion with the ones that have gone before me or the ones that will come. There's no final reconciliation with anybody that I left behind or died before me, and no final justice for anything that's unjust, any justice that needs to be done. So I need to do those things now. I better, reconcile with the ones that are in my life that I've had sour times with, and find reunion with them, and also seek justice in the here and now as well. Almost done. The great life adventure. That's that opportunity, like I was saying before, to go out into the world and go to strange places, and your definition, whatever your definition of strange is, and have experiences and live a life and learn a language and meet people and make mistakes and get hurt and wow the stories and all that stuff, and become a person that will be satisfied with their life. Got to take risks to do that, but recognize that you are taking risks. There's no guarantees. You may fail. You may die. You may live a shorter life as a result. Is that such a bad thing? I also like to say that by having a good, great life adventure, maybe a lot of them, you'll also become a pretty interesting person as a result. You'll be that person at that cocktail party that people like talking to. Notice those people always have a diverse life. Or there's something about them. They don't always have to have adventures. Adventure doesn't always have to mean getting in a plane, train, or an automobile. Adventure can mean exploring the deeper realms of mathematics, for example. You may not find many people who can relate to that, but that's an adventure in its own right. So consider the wide range of definitions. And only a couple left, only 2 left, I think. One is the season of philosophy. That comes at a time when you've had your life, you've had your great life adventure, you've developed your principles and objectives along the way, or at least you have some idea. Now it's time to get them down and write them down, and maybe write a book, sharing what you learned. That's your season. Watch out. That season comes at a particular time. Usually my experience has been when the muse comes that you can write, or you can make a video, or you can draw a picture, or whatever you want to do to express yourself. You better act on it when that muse is talking to you, because otherwise it's going to go away, and it won't be there anymore. The words that you could write in your 30s, you won't be able to write in your 40s or your 50s, and you can't, of course, write what you could write in your 60s in your 30s. So there's a season, there's a muse in different seasons, and sometimes there's no muse at all. Sometimes the muse just needs a catalyst, like sitting under a bridge. This is a great catalyst for me. I can write all day long here, although I kind of run out of energy. But in terms of ideas, they just flow. I mean, just sit down and write. It's amazing to find that catalyst and then use it, and then record it and set it down, and then set it drift. I like to hide mine. As you can see, there's a copy of Going Alone right up there under the rafters, and I carry Going Alone around, copies of the book around in my motorcycle, and I leave leave it wherever I think that I might find someone might find it. I'm actually trying to catch people who might, particularly young people, who might be desirous of a life like this, but may not have not quite sure how to get started, right? I mean, I had that problem too. And I was lucky that I ran into Thoreau and Bixler and a few others that kind of gave me the example. So I'm just going to wrap it up now. Just a few minutes left. This is it. So the last one is the arena and utility. This life is now that you've got your principles, your objectives and your principles, and you're welcome to borrow mine if you want. I'm happy to lend them to you. You can have them. There's this one chapter in here. Where is it? It's here near the back. Yeah, there it is. There it is. The Good Life. And I got them all laid out. All this stuff I just went over is all laid out here. See? And number 14, The Path of Wildness. And it'll be its own book soon. You have at them. Yeah, you can have them. I'll give it to you. Literally, I'll give it to you. If you just write to me, I'll send you a copy. Literally. Anywhere in the world. Just send me an email at dinner@theriver@gmail.com and send me your mailing address, and I'll send you a copy, along with a rock from the Deepwater Wilderness. Last thing is arena and utility. Life is a arena for the execution of our principles and ideas. These things we have. And then, which are like utilities. I mean, there's like a utility belt, like someone wears around their waist, you know, a carpenter or something like that. They're pulling out a tool, you know, pulling out temperance or apathy or whatever the case may be, you know. Just remember the homunculus. That's what this is. And once you are under those things and you have that in mind, all the better for living a better life. And you know what? I'm gonna wrap it up now. And I think I'm gonna head on home. Because even though I have this life, I also have another life, my family life. Don't forget that. If you see these videos that I make and this thing that I'm doing, keep in mind that it's dangerous doing this. There is a danger of kind of like an irrelevance. It's not, that's a harsh word to say, but it's kind of true. Your life may become not irrelevant like it doesn't matter, but just in the truest sense of the word relevance. Relevance means related to. If I spent all my time out here doing this stuff, I would be saying stuff, I would be so far down the deep end. I'd be saying stuff that really wouldn't make much sense to anybody. And gotta be careful about that. And it's not that my family is my protection and tool and utility against irrelevance. They're just, you know, I genuinely chose that. I didn't realize that that was the case until later. But now I know it. I'm very, very careful. Thank you, Spot, for being a good spot for writing, for making videos. I'm very, very careful now to make sure that I live in both of these worlds. And this is where I'm going to leave my chair from now on, right there. When I come back next time. And there's the train. Let's climb. Oh, the bike's still out there. Passing through Siberia. All right. Thanks for joining me for this good life meditation. Make it a good life. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.